I need my phone, but I don't know where I put it. Is it really far away? I heard it a second ago. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Gemma and today I'm doing something that I don't know how well it'll go down. No, I don't mean it's going to be an issue. I just mean it's like something that I haven't done on this channel before. This channel has very much always been about fashion and beauty and everything. And this is kind of, I guess, a bit more niche, a bit more not my usual subject, I guess, but something I'm equally as passionate about, and that is podcasts. I am obsessed with podcasts. I honestly listen to them pretty much daily. I would rather listen to podcasts than like music on kind of travel or at work or something. I just find it way more entertaining to sit there and hear like a story or like something funny or like live within a different sort of world or something, rather than just listen to songs at work. So I'm gonna go over my top 5 podcasts. They cover my favourite subjects, which are sex, murder, and kind of story times. None of these are like groundbreakingly niche or something, so you may have heard of them before. If you have, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to like chat about them, or like know if you listen to any of these ones too. However, if you haven't, I may just introduce you to your new favourite thing, like I've done many people over the past like couple of months. So the first one I'm going to start with has actually been like kind of a #1 comedy one for a very long period of time. Rightly so. It is the funniest thing you'll ever listen to in the world, I promise you that. Everyone who's kind of been skeptical about it, I've been like, listen to the first episode. If you're not hooked, like leave it, because you're just not worthy. But it's the funniest thing you'll ever hear in your life, and it is called My Dad Wrote A Porno, and it's basically exactly what it says on the tin. This guy's dad heard about 50 Shades of Grey, was like, I can do that, wrote this really bad pornographic novel that is like so bad it's funny, and his son and 2 of his friends sit and basically just read the entire thing and rip it to shreds, and it is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And there's been many a times where I've kind of been at work and I've just been like holding back tears of laughter, because it's just, there are points where like the characters' names change because he's forgotten what they were, and there's like scenes where he describes sexual interactions in the most cringy, embarrassing way that you would never want your dad to ever say. They even told a story on the kind of podcast one time that there was a girl listening to it on the tube and, oh, I just broke my necklace. Oh no. Oh well, I'm wearing 2 more. And she was like listening to it on the tube, and there was like a big reveal in it, and she like actually like gasped out loud, and the guy like next to her tapped her and was like, oh, my dad wrote a porno. She was like, yes. And don't worry, it's not some kind of, well, it is, it's completely sorted, but it's not like this, what's the word? It's not like something genuinely arousingly pornographic. That's not the point. It is fully comedy and definitely worth listening to. The next one is still on the sex topic, but less, what's the word? It's still funny, but it's just less, okay, it's more educational, that's a better word for it. And that is a podcast called Guys We Fuck, which is a brilliant title because it is what the podcast is about. It is about guys that these 2 girls have fucked, but it's also a lot more educational than that. It's very feminist. I've like learned so much about it, and they kind of drift between either interviewing guys that they've had sex with and having a whole open conversation about it, or they do also go into more like hard-hitting subjects. So they've had people on there who have had abortions and shared their experiences, people who have been raped, people who are like gay, lesbian, transsexual, everything. They kind of explore every aspect, but they do it all in such a kind of open and educational but not preachy sort of way. They're very pro-sex. They like shun the word slut. It's like they say like you're sexually explorative, you can kind of live your own dreams in that as long as everyone's consenting, all that sort of thing. And it's just like amazingly, I don't know, it's just I think it's made me generally a more open-minded and better person from listening to it. But it's also funny. It's hosted by 2 girls, which I think is amazing. Every time I see like some women killing on the podcast, what's the word, charts, I feel really kind of proud, and my inner feminist is like cheering for them. So yeah, that's an amazing one. I just think everything they do is just incredible, but it's also funny and it's also empowering, I guess. Okay, my next one is gonna be my other weird and on the nose topic, and that is murder. I am a huge fan of true crime. I love all like Forensic Files and all those Netflix documentaries and everything like that. I'm obsessed with things. I just really love seeing the inner workings of someone's mind and the thought process that they've done and how they've executed something that is just unimaginable to me. I just find it so interesting. And there's this podcast which is called My Favorite Murderer. or murder. My favourite murder, I think. And it's hosted by two women again. Basically, they just have a little bit of a chat for a while and then they both discuss a murder. So they kind of tell it as if they're telling a story. So you kind of get to hear about what happens and they like research it and go through. And then they both take it in turns telling one each episode. And then every other week they do one which is a minisode where they have people who have emailed in their like hometown murders and then they talk about them. And they do it in a funny way and it is quite light-hearted, but I don't find it insensitive in my opinion. They try and use the correct terms and things, but they do go on and say like, we're not factual, we're not here for the facts. So it's like still quite light and it's really good to listen to, and it is one of the most popular ones. Before you start thinking I'm a massive weirdo, it's very popular. I'm not the only one listening to this podcast like by myself listening to murders, but I just like how it's done. I love how informal it is, and again that it's hosted by two women. They do say don't go there for the facts. If you do want like kind of a factual one, you could try Last Podcast on the Left, which is hosted by these three guys and they full on research a thing, and that's about like murders and cults and movements and all this stuff. And that's a complete side note, that's not in my top 5. I love that podcast, it's not in my top 5, but it's just another really good one. My next one is another hugely popular one, but it has to be in the top 5 because I never miss an episode. It comes out every Monday and I have to be there to listen to it when it comes out, and that's This American Life. It's hosted by this guy called Ira Glass, and it's this American radio show that it's hugely popular, but like they have like the podcast here over in the UK as well. This is the hardest one to explain. It's a journalistic podcast, so it is like stories and articles like told in like a story form, but the topics they do are so varied. So every week to week is a completely different topic, and they'll have like a sweeping title that'll be, I don't know, like a life-changing event, for example, and then they'll have 3 parts to it where they explore a story in each one that plays on different aspects of what that title could mean. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes it like makes you want to cry, sometimes it's like an unbelievably hard-hitting thing. Just every week it varies. It's just an amazing story. I guess if you really like kind of story time videos on YouTube, it will kind of fall within the same kind of niche of being involved in knowing a story, like a true life story. I feel like that's probably the best way to advertise it to a YouTube audience. It's just done so well. It's the most well-produced podcast probably ever. I just really love that one. They also did one you may have heard of, which was called Serial, which was a spin-off of them, which was basically the podcast version of Making a Murderer. If you loved that Netflix series, you'll love this podcast. I honestly think the podcast was better, and it was about a guy who supposedly murdered his girlfriend when he was in school. I don't believe he did it. And he's actually been granted like I think a new trial, which is supposed to start soon, and it's an amazing podcast. I absolutely love it. That's not in my top 5, but I just wanted to hit on the fact it's made by the same people, so if you like either of them, you'll like the other one. The last one I'm gonna go for, I struggled to narrow this down to 5, but I think I'm gonna go for one that I've only recently started listening to, and that's called The Truth. This is a bit of a weird one. Their episodes are only ever like 20 minutes long, and you have to listen to them with headphones. You can't really listen out loud. It doesn't have the same effect because it's telling you a story, but you're kind of immersed in the story because it plays on the different mics on your ears, so you're kind of surrounded by the noise and you're kind of living within the story, and every week is a different one. One example was you were in a classroom and it was like this unruly class. The teacher at the front of the class couldn't get the class to focus, and then all of a sudden he like whipped out a gun, and it was a whole story about how to resolve that issue and these kids trying to like sort it out before this like massive thing happens, and you're kind of sat there as if you're there listening to the story, and it's like so intense to be in the middle of. And then they had another one where like a woman was having a stroke and you're kind of in the ears as if it's happening, and she's trying to stay focused enough to be able to make the phone call to get past this moment. And they're really intense stories, but they put you really in the middle of it by being able to kind of play on the mics and everything, and I just think it's really well done, and every single week's a completely different story, so I've really enjoyed listening to them. So I think that will have to be number 5, but I am going to throw an honourable mention which is the lamest podcast I'm ever going to tell you about, and it's called Gilmore Guys. And I think most of you know, because I mention it in so many videos, I'm the biggest Gilmore Girls fan in the entire world. I'm obsessed, and basically this podcast sits week to week and they talk for about 2 to 3 hours about about one episode of Gilmore Girls and they go through the whole series. So there's like hundreds and hundreds of episodes and they kind of pick apart every little detail of it and go into it. And I realise how lame I sound, but I absolutely love that. So that was the one that was kind of tied for top spot, but The Truth kind of beat it out very, very mildly. Anyway, they are all of my top 5 favourite podcasts with a couple of honourable mentions in there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you listen to any of these or plan to. I'd love to like convert a few people to listening to these podcasts because they're honestly so good. But thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you're not already and give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you again soon. Bye!